Solo. Hello, everyone. And today we have again Christina with me to talk about different things about resume. In last episode, we talked about okay, what is the resume? What type of resume you can use? But today we're going to talk about some other aspects of recruitment. For example, what a hiring manager is looking in the resume, difference between cover letter and resume, and what is the most important where it should be there. So we'll talk about some of the small nitty-gritty aspects of resume which actually could make a big deal, especially in a time of situation where you have more applicant than a job posting. So today I have, of course, Christina. Hi, welcome back. And yeah,
Oh,
so yeah, tell me about this, like these nitty-gritties of resume that you think.
yeah. I think one of the things that I see when I'm coaching people on their resumes is that they forget or they partially forget who their audience is. And, the audience in general for most people will be some kind of hiring manager, possibly a recruiter, whether that's an in-house recruiter, like HR person who's vetting it for the hiring manager, or just directly into that kind of HR pool or whatever. And I think it's important that you consider that no matter who's going to be reading that resume, especially for technical people, that you communicate things in a way that's really relevant to the client and make it really easy for that reader to find the information they care about.
Yeah.
And I think particularly for technical people, if there is a first person vetting that resume on behalf of the technical hiring manager, that person vetting the resume may not be as technically savvy. And so that's where communicating really nice and clearly in language that even the non-technical people can start to make sense of is important.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty important thing because I think as a tech person, you think that other person is always a tech, but you'll be surprised to know that the resume screening is actually done by non-tech people.
yeah, often, very, very often. So you have to make it really simple and easy. It's kind of like if the job description said this, this, and this, really try to match, like if you have those skills, try to match a similar wording, similar technical listing. So don't give the acronym if they've spelled it out or vice versa, right? Make it really easy for that non-technical person to go, oh, that's a match, check, check, The other thing that I think people don't consider, and this is not just applicants, but even, when I've trained people who are in the staffing industry or just starting in recruitment, they don't often think about how then that client views the resume, meaning how much time do they actually spend looking at a resume the first time around. And I've often asked people, and I get things like 5 minutes, and somebody goes, oh no, 2 minutes. It's like 20 seconds, 30 seconds maybe tops. And then
Yeah.
people are really shocked. And I say, yeah, when you have a huge stack of resumes, and guaranteed these days there are going to be more applicants, as you said, Shannon. When you have that many resumes to look through, as a hiring manager, what you do is you have a cover letter in your resume, you go directly to the resume, and you scan maybe the first couple lines under the person's name to say, okay, who are they? And then you just look at titles and how long they were and where they were, and you just scan very quickly down the resume. And if that captures your interest, then you might spend some more time on it. But if that doesn't capture your interest, gone.
Yeah.
And that's pretty sobering, right?
Yeah.
So really think about, it's kind of like when you see articles in whether it's your LinkedIn feed or your Facebook feed or whatever. If the article is interesting enough, you'll go into more detail.
Yeah.
But if it isn't, you'll just skip over it, right? So we have to do the same thing with the resume. So this brings me to then my important point about information that you include in a resume or a cover letter. I sometimes have people say, include important information in the cover letter that they don't include in the resume because I want to change it. I want to have something special in the cover letter. And I'm like, do not do that, because remember that hiring manager is looking at the resume first. So if it's important, make sure it's in the resume. The cover letter then just emphasizes some of the key things again for the reader to help orient them.
Yeah, that is, I think, and a lot of time, in my time also, I think, I'm not sure how, like, I have always in dilemma whether I should add a cover letter or not, because I'm not sure if people are reading it. For example, if I'm hiring someone, and to be very honest, I just skim through the cover letter and I do the same thing, like maximum 30 seconds, I put in the resume and see how it looks like, and if anything that I'm interested in. And another thing for technology people, I will say again and again that nowadays, I really look for either their LinkedIn profile or their GitHub profile to see exactly if I'm looking for a tech person. So GitHub profile is a good testimony to say that, okay, you have actually done something and there is actually something that you have contributed to the community, or something. And also, like, I know a lot of people have GitHub profile, and what they do, they clone someone else's repository. That is not going to help either, because it's very easily to find out that in the fork that you created, you haven't contributed anything. So for technology people, other than the soft skill part, I will say that from the hard skill part, you should always consider having a strong LinkedIn profile with all skill set plus GitHub profile.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know it's frustrated for candidates to say, well, if the hiring manager isn't going to look at a cover letter, like, why do I bother writing that? And it's really, if it's required, and often it is still required and expected, it's really your chance to give them a bit more of a sense of your personality, because the resume will be much more in bullet points, whereas the cover letter, you're able to express who you are as a person a little more. And it's your opportunity to, like I said earlier, to really highlight then some of the absolutely key things. So there are a couple other things that I just wanted to add in today in terms of how we speak to our audience. There's one principle that I call order is important. So you want to have the most important information first, whether that's within the resume, and we talked about the sections last time, or within the sections of the resume. So if I have a certain project or a certain company that I worked on, what's most important to the client that is hiring you, not to you. Oh, I felt most strongly about this. No, it has to be to what's important to the client, because that's who your audience is. I also get lots of questions about length of resume too, right? And there are lots of different opinions about this. I'll explain what my credo is, and then you can take it with a grain of salt. But my general advice is, yes, succinct and short, but don't leave off important information just so that you can have a 2-page resume. It's perfectly fine for most people to have a 2, maybe even 3-page resume. If you're a really senior person, it's totally fine to go over that, because you may have enough experience that is worth putting in there and that the client actually needs and wants to see to be able to make your case, right? So it comes back to that principle of relevance.
Yeah, and I think for the number of pages of resume, I've seen a lot of in LinkedIn people share single page resume, and I was showing very popular resume, like people were showing Elon Musk's resume and Marissa May's resume. But those are, like, I will say, tech celebrities, but most cases it's reality. You and I, everybody like average Joe, they are not tech celebrities or anything. So I second your thought that it's okay to go like more than 1 page or 2 page, as long as you are able to put your every information out there, because you are not here to actually, of course, the first few paragraphs is the critical, but if someone is actually interested, they may want to see how you started your career. Just simple thought, like, for example, if I'm looking for a data scientist or that kind of role, most of a data site, I would like to see how they started their career, if
Yes.
what is the background there. So it actually gives the trajectory, okay, how that person followed and how they are here. Same way, it actually says a lot from the first job and of course the education. So these things, I think, if whatever reason your resume goes more than 1 page, is not end of the world. I mean, 2 page, 3
No.
pages is perfectly all right.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those of you that are more senior in your skill set, just think, my general guidance is don't go more than kind of the last 10 years or so, because past that, especially in the technology field, like things have changed
Past
so much.
5 years.
It
Yeah, I
just,
use
like,
past five
really
years to LinkedIn.
most people look at the last 3 to 4 years, right? So
Yeah,
that's where you're going to concentrate most of your detail. Like you said, you may want to see a trajectory, right? So the more detail and the more current and recent, less detail, it might just even be titles and dates.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's it. You don't put any other detail.
yeah, perfectly makes sense. Yeah, so I think so order of the importance and length of the resume. Yeah, do you have anything else to cover?
Well, I think that's all for today, but I have some more details that I'd like to do in our next session on how to construct a really good resume. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about the kind of things that we can like look at to really make that resume stand out.
Sure. Yeah. So maybe next episode on that. And stay tuned to the channel. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Christina, for your time. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye, Shannon.